Good day to you. My name is Mark Granger from Morrison, Mahoney in Boston. I'm here speaking with you by videotape today because a person in a black robe has decided he wants me to be with him instead of with you. In our line of work, that's a call you listen to. So I'm going to talk to you today by videotape about our project on record retention, Project 3. The record retention policy was a project that we were trying to do to determine the best way for members of the World Federation to keep their business records. We wanted to determine first what the industry was doing and then provide the industry with guidance as to what best practices would be. There were 3 stages to our project, some of which have been completed. We went out to the industry to find out how they were keeping records currently. We dealt with a large number of people on this. We then are in the process now of creating draft practices that will be circulated for review by the industry. And finally, once we have their feedback, we will create a set of best practices for the industry to follow. So what did we find out in our survey? Well, perhaps the most interesting thing amongst the 35 companies that responded from various sources, and being very confidential about those sources, was that there was no real pattern in anything that was set up for the retention of records. The exception may have been for financial information, which seems to be driven by tax laws and some local laws with respect to business records. The biggest factor in terms of keeping records inconsistent were the computer systems. The smaller personal data made it difficult for the keeping of records and often resulted in their being dumped. Aging out of computer systems was also an issue, and finally, the technology was lost and not retrievable on some records. Design drawings probably had the longest retention, but they would vary as to how long they were kept because many of them were kept only in hard copy. And whether the originals were actually kept or only modified records existed was also an issue. Other inconsistencies were found amongst companies and within such areas as material specifications, quality control, production records, shipping records, and sales records. Email is a huge problem. First off, it's very difficult to keep complete, and often the loop isn't closed on communications. A discussion would start on email and would finish without it being completed. Or sometimes, because of differences in computer space between different individuals, part of the program would be kept and part of it would not. CCs and blind CCs were huge issues, and often people would say they were CC'd on an email and have no memory of it. Finally, very few companies seem to have a searchable type of email system that would allow you to do word searches. As a result, you had situations where it would take hours to go through emails because there was no search engine. Another issue for companies is litigation and government action. Under the Zubilake cases, you can be required to hold your records indefinitely by the pendency of a court case. This creates huge possibilities for embarrassment and also for sanctions. You have to be careful about your records. You have to keep them and deal with the rules that the courts and the government agencies have set out. So what are we doing next? Well, we're going to draft these best practices for record retention, and then we're going to circulate them. And we hope to get feedback from you to me at mgranger@morrisonmahoney.com. Then we will draft those final best practices and share them with you, and hopefully they will be helpful in running your businesses. Thank you for your attention to this, and we look forward to your help with doing this project.